And now, like, if we have the looks of an old car with the performance of the new stuff, that's what I'm after.
Everybody always knows what everybody else should be doing. And there's always going to be a group of people that's like, what you're doing is no good.
And I slam into the fire station. So
Oh,
it's a car with a story.
There's two classes, stock and open class, and that what dictates what class you go in is what batteries you run, solar cells you have, and motor you have. So we competed in the stock class. We won first place. And if you have questions about it, I'm more than happy to talk to you about it or even provide levels of consultation just for free. I mean,
thank you so much for carving out some time to talk to me today. I'm sitting down with Rocky and Dawn with Evolution Motor Co. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
thanks, Dan. Glad to be here.
As kind of just a bit of a lead in, I'd love to hear a bit more about yourselves. Maybe Rocky, you kick us off with a little bit of your background and what got you into building electric vehicles.
My background, I'm not going to go into all the gory details, but primarily my job now, 9 to 5, is a mechanical engineer. I've always been into mechanical things. It started as a kid with cars, though, as I think all of us kind of can appreciate. A lot of the historic cars that caught my attention, things like the DeLorean from the Back to the Future the movie, which is really what got me interested in cars in general. And then along with the General Lee, and then all the custom cars throughout time, especially Gen X type vehicles. Loved all those. So car love grew into mechanical things. Went to school to be a mechanical engineer. Actually, first went to school to be a mechanic. I just turned wrenches for a number of years
Really?
at different dealerships. So I went and got educated in as an automotive technician. Worked at a couple different dealerships, Ford dealership, Cadillac dealership, GMC dealership, and decided that I needed to go back to school after a couple of on-the-job injuries, or actually had a car fall off the lift and break my leg,
Oh my
and couple
gosh.
couple that with just the general. I don't know, wasn't really digging it, right? Turning
Yeah.
wrenches all the time. Thought I couldn't do this till I was retired age. So I went back to school, bachelor's, master's in mechanical engineer, worked primarily in the Department of Defense space and aerospace industry, a little bit of short stint in the automotive industry doing autonomous vehicles, so like autonomous semi trucks. That's my background primarily is doing guidance sections for missiles and also control sections like the fins and all the things that steer the missile. So that all, believe it or not, is very pertinent to how an autonomous vehicle drives. You have to sense where you need to go and then make a decision about how to get there. And
Mhm.
missiles work the exact same way. So the autonomous industry is very similar to how missiles work. So it was right up my lane, right up my alley. So I went there for a couple years. That company was not successful for various reasons. Went back to Raytheon, but at that moment, I figured I'm getting older. My son is showing a lot of interest in electric vehicle technology. He went and built an electric dirt bike. That you can see that video, that build video on YouTube as well. But that kind of spurred my interest, which already existed. I did some solar car racing in college, cross country. So I already kind of enjoyed building electric vehicles. So kind of all that rolled into the perfect storm of I'm going back to this old company that I wanted to work at. I'm really thinking I need to do something maybe a little bit more challenging or different. My son liked EVs. That's when I started up Evolution Motor Company. And then I met my friend Don here. We bought a bunch of parts from him for the dirt bike, actually.
Oh, cool.
He asked what we're doing. I told him, and he wanted to participate. So,
Yeah,
and
good old
we're glad to have him.
good old Facebook Marketplace. Pardon
Yeah,
that.
I love
Networking
that.
center. It's like LinkedIn for people that work with their hands.
yeah. And I'll let Don speak for himself, but I know he's going to be modest. But I will say that so, like I mentioned, I have a lot of 23 years of engineering experience. But Don is the perfect match for what we're doing here. Um, I definitely am guilty of doing the analysis paralysis thing that a lot of engineers like to do.
Sure.
But Don's very experienced when it comes to building cars. This is his shop. He's been gracious enough to let me come in here and build cars, and he's a part of the team. He's a part of Evolution Motor Company, and so he brings all his knowledge. He's built a lot of cars, more cars than I have, but his skill sets are a great match for what I do and what I strive to obtain at my normal 9 to 5 job, where I come up with a concept, I come up with ideas. I have a lot of hands-on experience, but not as much as he does. But I try to find people that have a lot of integration type experience and bounce ideas that I have off of them so they can provide feedback. And Don does a great job of that. He's already helped me quite a bit with some of my design work. So go ahead, Don. What do you got?
Okay, Dan. Well, I'll go from present to past. My
Like
gray hair should
from that
lead
fateful
everyone.
day on Facebook when Rocky
Yeah.
reached out to you and before.
Yeah, actually, just being a car builder or whatever, I'm someone that doesn't throw anything away. So like we had some dirt bike parts he called from. That was what got the ball rolling and how we met. But first of all, I am not of the book educated engineering background. We do have that in common. I do remember being graduating from high school and thinking I wanted to be a mechanical engineer because I loved to work with my hands. And ever since I was a kid, if the vacuum cleaner needed to be put together, it wasn't my dad putting it together, it was me, you know, putting it together,
Mm.
and just making things, and I thought, oh yeah, so an engineer gets to make stuff. I quickly realized, even though in high school I took all the hard classes, did really well, I think that combination of me being on my own and I went to school in University of British Columbia, 3,000 miles away. I wasn't disciplined enough to to be successful. So that I think that first kind of failure really hit home with me, and I was like, okay, I'm not cut out to be a mechanical engineer, not at this point, anyways. Maybe now I could go back to school, but anyways, I still loved anything mechanical, cars, fabricating. Growing up, Jay Leno was my hero. Just the thought of having a collection of cars. So my actual job was here in Tucson is I was a firefighter paramedic for 24 years.
Oh,
And you
wow.
might think, oh, that doesn't have much to do with cars. The way it has to do with cars is that firefighters generally have a bunch of days off and they can either find trouble or make trouble, get in trouble. But the way I stayed out of trouble and the way, I've been married for over 20 years now, my wife always knew I was in the shop. So every day off, every stretch of 6 days off, I was building a car. I kind of got that reputation on the fire department as the guy that had, I always say 23. The number could have ranged from 13 up to 30 at any one time. So I would build these
Whoa.
cars and you name it, whatever the car was. Uh, and I would build these cars, and then they became like children. I couldn't sell them because it'd be selling your kid. So I just kept them all, and all through the job. And actually, my last few years, we had taken over Raytheon Fire, and so I would drive a different car to work every day, and the guards at Raytheon would be like, "Hey, can you drive that 71 Javelin or the 57?" Anyways, I love those cars. Was looking forward to retirement. And what happened is, because I wasn't electric oriented at the time, I was never against it. But I just thought, oh, when I retire, I'll have all this time to work on my cars. And that happened maybe for a month. But what the reality is when you don't have somewhere to go and you got a big collection of cars, they just sit.
Mm.
So the gas gets bad, the tire, the rubber, everything, and I had all these beautiful cars, and I would not drive them, and so I kind of fell out of the hobby. But my brother came along to visit, and he had a Tesla, and took me for a ride, and I did the where I'm gonna lean forward and you're gonna accelerate and you're not and you just get thrown back. And I'm like, what? You can get this in a car? I mean, like, they are the cars that we thought we were gonna have by now. And what you pay and what you get is almost equal. We're like the new cars, oh, so you get 10 cup holders and big
Yeah.
deal, But this car gives you everything. It can drive itself. Oh, so that kicked me off. So I bought a Tesla and higher model, It had to be higher than my
Got
brother.
to beat him.
Uh, but and that sold me. And then I just got thinking, it's that rabbit hole. You get on YouTube or whatever, and I got this, it's over my shoulder, 62 Ranchero. It comes with a 144 cubic inch motor, maybe 60, 70 horsepower, right? Uh, why don't I do that? I hadn't
Yeah.
started yet. And then I think it was just whatever, serendipity, kismet, whatever. He bought that uh, wheel, I think it was,
Yeah, a set
for
of
his
wheels.
son's electric bike. We got talking, and I swear that day I was like, "Well, come to my house. Come to my house. Look what I think I want to do," and uh, and I showed him this, and that's what kicked it off. And we were both uh, into it. So I have a big fabrication background. I do a lot of one-offs.
Mm.
Like we'll show you, I don't know if do you have the motor mounts and stuff? I've never been involved in like wanting to make the same thing over and provide it for other people just because, the ice industry is inundated with everything that you need. There's no breakthrough stuff. This is so fledgling and new that it's exciting again to me, and it kind of rejuvenated that fire. And now I'm looking at all my other cars like MGB GT, that's going electric.
Yeah.
The the
71 Cutlass.
71 Cutlass, sure. And yeah, I'm getting a lot of heat from everybody about wanting to do that, but just remember, this egg-shaped Tesla can spank anything on the road.
Right.
And and now, like if we have the looks of an old car with the performance of the new stuff, that's what I'm after. So that's I hope that kind of got you exposed to my background, but there is like I said, that dying first of, man, what else next? How many LS swaps am I gonna do? I'm kind of bored with that. And now this is grassroots stuff that, like, what are they coming out next year? I'm seeing all these new cars. Oh, I can't wait till those start showing up in the salvage yard so we can use
Yeah.
that motor or something. So it's very exciting, it's very new, and anything we come up with isn't out there yet, you know, like the stuff we're designing, and it feels very exciting to me. And that's something I'm learning too, because like I said, I'm a good fabricator, I believe. But it's with that, cut a piece of cardboard out, make it once, that's good enough. I never have to do it again. But he's teaching me, hey, take the scanner, scan what you want to do, and we'll put it on Fusion 360, design the part, and now we can make 10 of them, 12 of them, whatever, and redesign it, tweak it here, tweak it there. And that's exciting to me. I can barely make a circle on Fusion 360, but it is still exciting to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It really is. We're at this cutting edge of hot rod culture. I think that people think of hot rods, they think of old gassers, but like you said, so much has been done that when you really think about how do we do something that's never been done, that's going to be faster, better, stronger, more reliable, this is it. It's all brand new.
I like to be an underdog. So, uh, I think the pushback on electric cars, because that's undeniable. If you're into old hot rods,
Sure.
there's going to be a group of people that are determined to say that, oh, well, I'll never give up my carburetor, or I'll, and God bless them. That's okay, because honestly, that was probably me before I learned about fuel injection and the
Sure.
integration of modern with old, and you kind of just tend to embrace what you know. But if you hot rodding's about like experimenting, learning what works, trying something different, and this is we're on the cusp of what's to come, so that's still exciting.
But even
Yeah.
still, like even within all these genres, like even within like you touched on, I'll never leave my carburetor. Everybody always knows what everybody else should be doing. And everybody, there's always going to be a group of people that's like, what you're doing is no good. What you're
Yeah.
doing is in,
Yeah.
whatever the case may, in disapproval. But at some point, as we all I think probably been there at some point or another, and you just do it whatever you want, and you can't please everybody, but at some point you got to also let this performance speak for itself. And one of the first things I say when somebody's a downer on electric vehicles is, have you ever even driven one? Have you ever even been in one? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
so a lot of times you just let the car do the speaking for itself.
Yeah, that's where it really answers. I mean, if you got less performance, I could see the logic in their pushback answers, but you're getting everything and more, with these electric cars. And I just tell them, well, I don't have to worry about bending a valve spring or
Yeah. So Don, it sounds like you had a pretty awesome dream car collection, but is there one that really like stood out to you, maybe one of your early cars that like really captured your imagination that you just loved?
Well, like I said, they're like my children, right? And
So
I
no
I love
favorites
them.
or wink
No,
wink?
I do
No
have a
favorites, wink.
favorite, and people
So
are
wait, you have a
gonna,
favorite child?
yeah,
I'm
well,
just kidding.
I love them
No.
equally, but some a little more. No, and it hasn't left me yet. So, like I said, I'm thankful that I had a good job that I could, and a job that gave me days off to work on these things. So the first car I ever bought was the 71 Cutlass convertible. And it's weird because it probably didn't start off as my dream car because it was green. And I said, oh, the first thing I'm going to do is turn it red, because I was 30 years younger and thinking that all cool, sports cars have to be red.
Got to be red.
But it quickly grew on me. And that's my favorite car. Like, it's killing me that it's just sitting there right now and not on the road, and it's still in great shape. It's in fantastic shape, but it'll be even better. And the thought of making it electric, um, it doesn't bother me. Like, if I tell my friends, "Oh, I can't believe you're gonna do that," and I'll be like, it will be that and more, because visually it's not really gonna change, but performance, it's gonna step up. I remember my friend saying, "Hey, you're gonna bring the gutless cutlass to the car show," or making fun of it, and I'm like, "Yeah," but now it's gonna spank whatever they have to offer. And so that's my baby. One, because it was like the first legit old car that I bought with my job and will never get rid of. So
Awesome. How about you, Rocky?
Yeah, I jokingly say, but actually I'm kind of serious. Like the only regret I have in my entire life, and I've done many things that I could be regretful of, but the one regret that I truly have was selling my first car, and that was the '84 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme.
Hmm.
And I know that's not everybody's cup of tea. Don gives me a hard time about that all the time,
we got a
but
10-year age gap, so the generation stuff is like
I mean,
brutal.
I like G bodies. That's the G body car. It's a classic G body car. I also love the A body vehicles. We can talk more about what evolution is doing for those particular body styles, but the '84 Cutlass holds a special place in my heart just because it was my first car, right? It's not like a special hero car or some weird thing it's just that generation of Cutlass Supreme. I like it, and I sold it early on just to get another car, like we all do. It's like
Yep.
I'm young, I don't have a lot of money, and what do? Sell the car I have, go get another one. The moment I sold it, I regretted it. And I've gone so far as to locate I've got the old VIN numbers. I've called junkyards where it was I think it's just been totaled. I think it's no longer with us.
Ah,
I've tried to find it, and I hear stories like that all the time. And sometimes you find it, sometimes you don't. I'm not going to. Ironically enough, I did find a gentleman about 2 hours, or about an hour away from here, who had an '85 Cutlass, same exact body style, rotting away in his abandoned house. Like
Hmm.
in his
Yeah.
he has some property in a farm town not too far from here. And I driving past that thing, I saw that 85 Cutlass just sitting there. I went through hoops to try to figure out who owned it. Long story short, I got a hold of the owner of it. He's the original owner. It's been sitting there since I think the early 2000s, like 2001 time frame. It has like 80,000 original miles on it, but it was crashed and then he parked it there and it sat there ever since. So it's a total time capsule.
Yeah.
He just basically gave it to me. So
Really
Yeah.
Don and I went and
We
picked it up
rescued it.
about a
Yeah.
month ago. If you go on my
amazing.
Instagram, if you go on Evolution's Instagram account, you can see us extracting it there out of the desert. And we right around the corner in
Yeah.
in a garage out there.
It's pretty well preserved. Yeah.
Um, but it needs some love. All right, it's been sitting there for a long time, and we'll get to it next year. But yeah, the 84 Cutlass is the one I miss. But hopefully can resurrect this one and live the dream again.
It sounds like it. It sounds like
Yeah.
it. Well, you guys have a lot going on at Evolution, and everyone is going to be really excited to see that roll out and maybe see a car at State of Charge next year. But there was something you mentioned kind of in the intro about the solar challenge. And before we get too far from that, I'd love to just high level get a sense of about what that was, because it's a little bit foreshadowing to what you're doing now.
This organization created what's called the American Solar Challenge, and it was a race across the country. I think there was like different starting and ending points over time, but when I competed in it, I competed twice. You have 2 years to build, to fundraise, design, and build a solar powered race car, all student led. Like you cannot get industry involved. You can't get your professors. There are professors that are involved to be like your mentors,
Sure.
but it's entirely student led. And then so you design it from scratch, and you build it and you race it from Chicago to Los Angeles. So we start off at the
Wow.
Chicago Museum of Industry, and then you race along Route 66. So it's totally
Cool.
classic and nostalgic and all that along Route 66 all the way to the Santa Monica Pier. That's where the finish line is.
Huh.
And so it's totally one of those events that it's because it's long term. There's a lot of there's a lot of stress, time. It's the perfect recipe for camaraderie, anxiety,
Hmm.
happiness, all the things that you would expect in an experience like that. You know, all the emotions all balled up into one thing, and then you race it. You and your team fly out to Chicago. You stage or you qualify, you stage, and you race across the country with no sleep, no food because you're tired. You're a broke college student. You only raised enough money to build the car, and none of us had. I mean, maybe our families made us some food like PB&J, but mostly you lived off of coffee and gas station food.
Yeah.
At least we did. University of Arizona or University of Michigan, those punks, they had they had like $1 million set up. They had like an 18 wheeler with its own machine
Oh
shop
my
in it,
God.
and so it totally is just like racing. Like the
Yeah.
ton of money you can give, there's I don't think there was a cap on that type of thing. We borrowed a guy's dad's van as a chase vehicle. It was always breaking down,
Underdogs
it was a
too.
total underdog situation. The
Yeah.
first year we competed, we actually won the stock class. There's two classes, stock and open class, and that what dictates what class you go in is what batteries you run, solar cells you have, and motor you have. So we competed in the stock class. We won first place. So that was like,
Yeah.
now I'm hooked. Now I'm addicted. So we wanted to come back 2 years later, and we competed in the open class, and that what we weren't quite as successful, but we finished the race. We were in, I think, sixth place when we finished, but we were in dead last when we started.
Hmm.
Um, Quick story, even though you didn't ask for it, I'm going to give it to you anyway.
Hit me
The
with it.
Yeah, when we first started the race, you qualify, and that dictates what place you start in. I think we were in 10th place, something like that, when we started. We qualified for 10th. This is out of like 30 universities.
Okay.
And there's universities from all over the world, literally from everywhere. And so it's our time to go. The car doesn't go. They only wait for so long. Then the next team goes. So we are now dead last. We are the last team. And not only are we last, we're like an hour or two behind because the car
Oh,
wouldn't go. There was an issue, I think, with the battery setup. We get it to go. We're on the two-way radios. We can hear everybody's conversations back and forth. And all we are hearing is everybody's getting flat tires. And we're like, what the hell's going on with this flat tire situation? We hear that there's a chip sealed road that they just chip sealed the day before. And we weren't aware of it. The race officials weren't aware of it. Chip sealed rocks. I don't know if you've ever walked on a chip sealed road. It's like glass shards. They're really sharp rocks. So we get right, everybody's just trying to go through the chip sealed road, and the solar car tires are really thin. So everybody's getting flat tires. We get to the chip sealed road, pull over, check it. Yeah, for sure. This is not a good surface to go through. We're trying to figure out what to do. Do we power through like everyone else? One of the few sponsors we got that actually shipped us stuff was 3M, and they shipped us a crate full of duct tape. So we put a whole roll of duct tape on all three wheels because they're three-wheeled machines, two wheels in the front, one in the back. So we just lifted the car up by hand. It was super light. You could lift the whole car up. So you lift it up, and somebody spun the wheel, and then you would unroll a whole roll of duct tape on the treads of the wheel. We went through. We went from last place to sixth, I think sixth or eighth place, and then we remained there for the rest of the race.
That's freaking awesome.
And we kind of jockeyed back and forth, up a couple positions, back down, but that was how we started the race. And then everything else was like, we had to spin out on I-10 in Flagstaff because it was raining. Um, there were people that like wherever you ended the day at the race, you had to camp out there. So we didn't have money for hotels. We just literally slept in the van, on the trailer, on the roof of the trailer, wherever we could sleep. Some of us didn't sleep because the car was broken. We had to fix it
With duct tape.
with duct tape.
duct tape.
There were there were people that would because you could also follow along online, or on TV. This was I don't know if there was a website to follow it on, but you could follow it on TV. And so there were people that were trying to see, like the cars go through their areas. So there were people that were coming up to us at night while we're working on the cars, and they would give us food. One lady let us stay in her barn, so we slept on like bales of hay.
Score.
And so it's just stuff, it's just experiences like that
Yeah, you can't
that, yeah, like you can, and the camaraderie. I'm still friends with a lot of those folks
You
from the
also said you
team.
got in fist fights.
We did, just like, stressful situations. There are times where people are arguing about how to do something or what should we should do. A couple fist fights broke out. You're fighting amongst each other, but then you recover and you kind of keep it going down the line. So solar racing was to this day one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. Outside of my family, right? Kids, wife, all these things. But when it comes to that, like the car building and racing, yeah, that was amazing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What sort of like performance were you seeing in these cars? You were just driving on the highway, so were you going the speed limit or
You could. I mean, they're very fast,
yeah?
but you couldn't maintain it. The battery capacity was super small. I mean, I think we were running lithium ion batteries, but I think they were like 5 kilowatt hour packs or something like that. They were
Wow.
really small packs. Uh, and the motors you could definitely go, I mean, as fast as you wanted. Probably not very safe, but on the road, I think we would average maybe 40 miles an hour on average.
Okay.
Like this is even on Route 66, and sometimes you had to take the highway. So you had a lead vehicle and a chase vehicle, and the car was in between. So and you had a race official with you. You always had a race official with you to make sure you're minding all the rules because when the sun goes down, you
Not
have to
getting towed.
charge. Yeah. And so I think about probably 40 was our average.
Okay.
Sometimes we'd spike up, a lot of times we'd spike down, but yeah, it was definitely not speedy. It was definitely an endurance type thing.
Would the
So
solar keep it charged?
The
But
solar would
sorry.
kind of keep it charged, but the biggest contributor to the solar panel was at night at actually when the race is over for the day. The sun's not quite down yet, so you take the solar panel. The car had a clamshell type thing, so you pull the top off, you put it on this solar tracker that we designed and built, and you would point it at the sun. So the solar panel would then,
Get the
that's when
very
you would,
last
and you
of
had
it.
to charge every last, photon into the battery because you can't charge, you can't plug in.
Oh, no
So
wonder.
your next day, the only thing you have to run on is the charge you got from the previous night. So you would charge while you're driving, and then at night or when the race is over, you had maybe a half an hour or about an hour of sunlight, and then you charge
Ah,
from there. And then we'd put all our most efficient cells on the right-hand side of the car because you're going from east to west. No, on the left-hand side of the car. And so you have the sun shining on the cells that provided you the most electricity.
yeah.
that's clever. So
Yeah.
was this like a DC setup or was it a little AC motor?
AC motor. It was attached to we had like a steering knuckle or sorry, not a steering knuckle, but like a spindle on the back that
Hmm,
was supported by two control arms. The motor bolted right to that spindle. So it was like a direct drive motor, no gearing, no gearbox, nothing.
cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned you were using lithium batteries. So maybe you guys were like ahead of the curve there because that was before Tesla cars were really on the road. Have you seen the technology change a lot since you were doing the electric racing back then?
To the cars after me. The American Solar Challenge, I think 2 seasons after we raced, ended. And they turned it into like this they called it like eco something, where it was not just solar racing, it was a combination of like miles per gallon equivalent. So it turned into
Hmm.
something different, where it was like closed course
Hmm.
racing, and then they tried to get the most miles per gallon equivalent out of stuff. And I was like, this is lame.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
go cross
So
country. And
watered down Cannonball Run or something.
yeah, but they've since gone back to the original recipe. So I think more recently they've
Hmm.
started back up with the cross country racing. So I'll have
Oh,
to
okay.
follow it up. Long story short, I don't know. I'd have to
Okay.
double check to see what their chemistry is.
Well, that's a really cool background for sure, and I love that story. I almost feel like we were there along with you. Um, but I think that it would be good now to talk a little bit about some of your guys' builds. We got some pictures, some eye candy to throw up, and maybe Dawn, can you take us through the 62 Ranchero build? I can see it on the lift back there. What do you got going for that build?
Basically, it's a car that one of, from my previous past of just building cars, I got this one off of Craigslist. And again, going back to being a firefighter, you have a lot of downtime. And so I was on the computer, found this thing, but I was at work. And the guy had it for sale. This was maybe, God, I've had this probably at least 12 years now, 13 years. Um, so I'm like, oh, I can't break away from work. Is there any way? Because I bought it for $700. The
Wow.
guy drove it from San Diego to Tucson, he says. So that was enough to sell me on it. Oh, at least it runs. And but when so he said, well, I have a scooter and I can come to your station and I can offload it and then go from there. And I'm like, okay, as long as you're good with me, maybe writing you a check or something. So he showed up, and pictures always do a lot better than real life. So it was from San Diego. He must have lived a block or 10 feet from the beach because the roof, the floor, everything, it looked just almost as nice as, really solid on the passenger side, but he must have parked it consistently facing the sea
Oop.
because I could stick my hand from the roof down into the passenger compartment.
Did it have a stop
And
sign in the floor?
no, he didn't even go that far. Like I think some of the pictures I might have included, I was redoing the floors. And so that was a downer. Anyways, he shows up and I take it for a test ride and everything's going great. But then on the way back, I'm bringing it back around the fire station. Again, I'm on duty. And
He's
I go,
retired, man, so
yeah,
he
so
can't get in trouble.
whatever happens here. But I go to hit the brakes and he yells, pump the brakes, pump the brakes. And when you're like in the middle of that like chaos, you kind of panic. And so we were coming around the station. I'm going to park. He has a scooter in the back so he could leave. And I go to hit the brakes and nothing's happening. And he's saying
God.
he's yelling, pump the brakes. And all I could think of was to like jam the shifter on the transmission in the park, but that's still kind of over road, and I slam into the fire station. So
Oh.
it's a car with a story. Again, like I said, they're your children, so I can never get rid of this thing because of that story, you know.
Unruly
So we
child.
have to call the chief, and I have to tell him, hey, I didn't leave the station, but he was gonna come, and so anyways, the guy, I tell him, look, get on your scooter, go home, here's your money, whatever. Because in Arizona and a lot of other places, as long as you have insurance with another car, you're insured. So I had to make sure of that. Anyways, that was the birth of this car maybe 13 years ago. And I restored it like completely, like did the inside, did the floors, did the uh, uh, oh, learn to use an English wheel to do the curves and sawed off the drips. And it was a great car. A little, back then I could show it and be pretty proud of it. But it had a 144 cc motor. It was never going to win any races. Could barely get out of its way, but I still loved driving it. And so again, one of the cars that just kind of sat, I loved, um, would always kind of run when I wanted it to, but always still had its problems. For a 1962, you had vacuum windshield wipers, so you can't drive it in the rain, that kind of
Sure.
stuff. So this one became the candidate, because I was like, well, how do I this is such a learning curve to do electric, for a lot of us, like even having um uh regular mechanics, ice mechanics as a past, you feel really confident, like, okay, I can build whatever, I can do that. But like just learning how to hook up what does the inverter do? What does all these components that are outside of what you normally do, you're learning. Biggest thing for me was, where do I put the batteries? So I was like, well, I got a car with a truck bed. That'll take care of half of that. And so that kind of became the candidate to become an electric car. And then I was like, well, I'll buy an old Tesla. Well, you're not going to get into a used or crashed Tesla for less than, $6,000 to $8,000 even.
Hmm.
So, well, what's the next best thing? Oh, I rode in a Leaf. Those are pretty spunky little cars,
Yeah.
underrated, just great cars. But what's their Achilles heel? The battery.
Hmm.
So, I'm learning and learning and like buying a old uh Leaf that I just find and okay, I'm gonna take the guts out of this and put the guts in that, because that's what I do. I have a Studebaker in the back, 57 Studebaker. It's sitting on a 2000 Dodge chassis. So by all looks, every angle, it looks like an old car, but it's got power steering, power brakes, modern engine. So I wanted
Cool.
the same thing for this, you
Mm.
know, that my Tesla had, instant acceleration. And the Leaf is a great motor for that. And then I'm like, well, what do we do for a trans? Well, what's another, it's so hard to find a manual transmission anymore. Oh, but Miatas, nobody buys a Miata with an automatic.
Yeah.
So, and I knew a lot of guys that autocrossed them, and they beat these things to heck, and they just keep coming back for more. That's a great one. So yeah, that's what sparked our basically our crate situation. We could put this combo into anything. And you'll see like on Rocky's truck, it's gonna fit great too. So this one, like I said, did a lot of like custom things, Frenched the antennas, did a custom interior, all that, and it was gas, sat forever, um, and just decided this is going to be the electric car. Now you go from 50 horsepower to what am I thinking
You
now?
got the
100
you got
horse,
the
yeah, 110
110
horsepower.
kilowatt. Yeah.
You've doubled the
Yeah.
horsepower, and the car, as in its original form, still I drove it on the highway and it was fine. It's going to be twice of what it was, you know. And
And you don't have to worry about it sitting for
yeah,
tons of
let it
period.
sit. Oh,
Yeah.
just everything about that, the oil, the and this one had the leaded was on didn't have hardened valve seats, so I had to
Mm,
always put the lead additive in there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and
gnarly.
eventually it still started smoking. I mean, these things that like these, and again, I come from a diehard hot rod background where like, if it's not making a lot of noise, it's not cool and all this stuff and I feel like it's almost like political. I've been alienated by a lot of my old hot rod friends that like I can't believe you're doing that to
But you do
this
have
beautiful car.
a lot of your hot rod friends are embracing it,
Yes,
right? I
yes,
mean,
They
yeah.
want to
I've
go
talked to
Yeah,
fast.
it's yeah, it's not it's just like you have open-minded friends, you have open-minded friends. But like and once they take a ride in the Tesla, for instance, I induced my diehard hot rod friend. He got vertigo and wanted to throw up. I mean, no
Ha.
gas car has ever done that to him. So, there's no denying the performance, and it's going to be better. Oh, and that was another thing. I was like, well, so I've got the whole big bed back there. And I was thinking, we'll just throw them all in the bed. But he comes along and is with the scanner. We realize you can still have this bed. And we just split up the batteries and we optimize where we're going to put them. And for perfect weight distribution, because that's the heavy part, you're going to put 2 units in the front, up to 6 in the back, but it's all hidden. The beauty about this the old Rancheros is they had this like smuggler's compartment, for running drugs or moonshine or
Or a
whatever
cooler.
it was, and it flips up. Uh, and you've got, actually that's where like all the you could put tools and stuff. So we figured, hey, we can do up to 4 or 6 battery modules in here.
Awesome.
So we're actually going to still have the bed. It's still going to be super functional. It's this time it's going to have AC and electric power steering and those kinds of things, and it's just going to be super modern. And I won't be, trying to get out of my own way.
So is this done and running right now or almost done?
Yeah, we have it like up and turning the wheels on its own, but I
Cool.
haven't. I'm still needing to take it for a maiden voyage. But like as far as the pedal, all the drive systems, they're in place. It's going forwards, backwards. You know, almost have to like control myself not to go full speed on the lift, but it's almost there. Yeah.
and it is a good looking car too. It's got some custom touches to it. It's lowered a little bit. He's got some custom
Mm.
pinstriping. It's
Yeah.
not just a 62 Ranchero. He's shaved some the drip rails
Yeah.
and French the antenna. So it's a custom vehicle. And that's one of the things that I think the evolution is striving for is we're not just going to build cars that are or when we do build cars, we can talk about that a little bit, but when we do build cars, we're not just going to make another version of the same car. It needs to be a custom thing. It needs to be a custom vehicle, not just I restored a whatever but I made it electric. It needs to be a custom vehicle. It needs to look nice and aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And that's what we all love. So for this, as far as the technical bits, so did I hear it's a Leaf stack, and then you're mating that up to a Miata 5 speed, and then are you using the Leaf battery pack, or are you using different batteries for it?
No, we're using the batteries from an ID4 or
Oh,
that
interesting.
the MEB batteries. Those are great. They come all encased in their own module. Um, and I'm actually going to have to, uh, redistribute those modules. You'll see on Rocky's design, it's pretty clever how he'll be able to keep them all together. But so both we're gonna and that'll be even part of our future product lines is how to do a double stack, a four stack, or whatever configuration you're wanting to or need to distribute the batteries. But the MEBs are great. They're easy to understand. They and then they come in two kilowatt configurations. So I got the little bigger one, which is
You have an 82 kilowatt hour
82.
pack.
Yeah.
That's the 8S or 8S3P. Each
Yeah.
module has 24 cells, and then they just series and parallel them differently to
Right.
get different kilowatt hour, different capacity packs. So you got the larger capacity one,
So
82
it
kilowatt.
makes a problem to figure out where to put all 12.
Yeah.
But then he has the 8
Mine's a 9
module
module,
or 9 module, sorry.
62 kilowatt hour, 9 module version that are
Yeah.
12S2P. Yours is 8S3P.
Yeah. And both 355 watt or
Yeah, they're all run same
300
voltage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry.
really
Yeah,
cool.
I'm trying to learn all the I
Yeah.
can't say horsepower, can't say
Oh, you can say it.
yeah.
Are these water cooled batteries?
They are, but they're not water cooled the same way a Tesla is. So the Tesla packs have that little like serpentine ribbon that goes between each of the cylindrical cells.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how familiar you are with all these,
Working
but
knowledge, but
Yeah.
yeah. So
not an expert.
okay, so for to ground the conversation, the Tesla modules have a whole bunch of little cylindrical cells inside of them.
Right.
Then there's a little ribbon that goes in between, like a little copper hollow ribbon that goes in between the cells, and it kind of serpentines through the pack. And so it makes contact with the cylindrical part of each cell, and it wicks heat away that way. These aren't like that. Imagine the MEB batteries. These are made by LG Chem. Imagine a giant 9-volt battery. That's what it looks like. And it's a big aluminum box with two connections on it, positive and negative. It even has a little plus and a little negative. It looks just like a giant 9-volt. And then you cool it. Volkswagen cools them from the bottom. They sit on a chill plate.
A plate.
And
Okay.
the chill plate has liquid going through it, and that's what's cooled. And we'll do the same thing.
Conduction.
Yeah.
Direct
Yeah.
conduction.
That's still a
Yeah.
big improvement over the Leaf pack. It's like you
Yeah.
said,
Yes.
that's the weak point of Leafs is that they're not cooled at all.
Yeah.
It's a plus and a minus. It's like if you're a converter and wanting to use a Leaf, you can get a Leaf for $1,000 because
Yeah.
more than likely that battery pack is dead and the car is pristine. Everyone I find is like that. And so we just take what we need from that and like the rest you can sell off, you'll make your money back. But it's really the only car in that league. So they are improving it. The new one is going to be liquid cooled probably and more reliable, but those battery packs are just not the way to go for long-term use of a car. And these they come in the ID4. It's the MEB. They call it MEB group, and it comes in Audi.
Yeah, the Audi e-tron, the Volkswagen ID3 and ID4. There's also some other European
Yeah,
cars that
then
it
the
shows
new
up in.
VW bus that they
Yeah.
came out with
Those are
uses
cute.
Ford uses them in a couple of
Yeah.
different platforms. So, and you can buy them brand new too if you want. You can buy them brand new,
Yeah,
those modules. So they
they're
have a
very
high,
robust.
yeah, they have a high C rating. So,
Do you know the
we
C
really like
rating
those.
offhand?
What's that?
Do you know the C rating offhand?
So they're rated at 3C, but people have been known to get much more out of them than that.
Hmm.
So if you want to drag race or anything like that, you can get them. And also, not to poo-poo the Leaf pack. I mean, if you want simplicity, if you don't want to deal with cooling and you just want it to be very, very straightforward, it is, if you can find one that has its capacity still, it's a great starter. But if, you know, we are designing and building cars and components with longevity in mind. You know, we want to drive them long distances. We want them to last a long time. And so we chose to go a different route.
Yeah. I'm really liking this kind of platform or formula you guys are putting together. It sounds really cool. Is that the same recipe, if you will, that's going in the 91 Tacoma?
Yeah, almost exactly the same. And so the 91 is referred to as just the Toyota pickup. This is pre-Tacoma. So if
Ooh,
you go look up, this is the granddaddy of the
look at me
Tacoma.
getting it wrong.
And so yeah, look at me being well, actually,
The nerd.
I love it.
Toyota nerd.
I need that, Rocky. Please
uh,
keep me honest.
yeah, my siblings hate it, but whatever. And so the Leaf motor coupled with the Miata transmission is the same. We're using that here. Um, and then I'm going to use the same batteries, but as Don alluded to, I don't have to repackage mine because the truck I'm actually going for a little different look. Going back to what I said earlier, we're not just electrifying cars and then vehicles and then leaving them as is. His vehicle is custom and it looks very cool. My truck is going to be similar. We're going to build a flatbed, like an aluminum flatbed, work truck looking situation, kind of like a
Cool.
ute, like an Australian ute kind of flatbed truck. The battery will be integrated into that truck bed, and the bed will also have provisions for all the things that we like to do, like ride electric dirt bikes or dirt bikes in general. We'll also have compartments in the bed that will house everything that you need. So everything will be
Oh,
all encompassed. So you could effectively take this truck bed that has everything that you need in it, and any compact truck that exists, definitely for that generation of Toyota, it'll just bolt right on. But even the generation before this of Toyota and any of those old compact trucks that you and I remember, like the old S10s, the Ford Rangers,
Rangers,
the
yeah.
Nissans, those you can basically take the bed off, put this new one on, have your Leaf coupled to a Miata transmission with our proprietary coupler on it and motor mounts, and you're ready to go. We are also developing a thermal plate to heat and cool the batteries. Like Don has to rewicker the pack. Well, we're going to have cool thermal plates that will provide the cooling and the heating needed for those modules if you have to repackage the whole entire battery pack.
Plus, it makes it rapid charge compatible.
Yeah, so that's the one big difference is some of these plates that exist, I think I don't know how well the designers understand the thermal capacity of their plates, but uh, at least according to my calculations, my plates, the ones that I designed and that Don's helping prototype, uh, can handle DC fast charging even here in the hot desert in the middle of the day. So we've done computational fluid dynamics and heat transfer analysis on the designs. So in math world, it works. Now we got to build one and try it. And that's where Don really shines. He helps think of creative ways to build things and prototype them and
Creative,
uh,
you mean cheaper and innovative. Like,
but
like how to test this stuff without
with things that we
going out.
have,
Yeah.
because in Department of Defense world, I have everything I need. I
Right.
have test facilities. I have all the resources. We're here in Don's shop, and although it's a wonderful shop, you know, we don't have the resources to do every little test that I would ever dream up doing. And so Don's great at thinking about creative ways to make the things, make them work properly, and how to test them. So that's part of where we're at with that thermal plate too. So those three things we'll hopefully have to market late this year, early next. The MEB battery thermal plates, the Nissan Leaf motor mounts that can be coupled with our adapter plate that can mount up to a Miata transmission, 5 speed or 6 speed. All those will match up. And we have a clutched version that runs a clutch and a clutchless version too.
Or the
That's
whole
so
crate
cool.
setup even.
Yeah. And then we have other things on the back burner too that we'll be developing next year once this is all fleshed out.
Well, man, I have so many questions because this is really interesting, and I love what you guys are doing. The cars are both beautiful, and I look forward to seeing those products hit the market. A lot of Leaf is a popular component, but I think you guys are the first folks that I've seen that are ditching the Leaf battery and having another solution there, which I think is really powerful. Plus, if people haven't already seen it, go on their Instagram, like the motor mounts that you guys put together, like those things are cherry. They look so good, just very high quality parts.
Lack of a better term, like a crate motor type setup, right? All you need to do is now outfit it to your vehicle. It's a rear wheel drive converted from front wheel. It's got the motor mounts. The adapter plate is robust. I've done all the analysis, all the structural analysis that would go into like an OEM level technical rigor. I've accounted for shock and vibe. I've accounted for crash tests. I've accounted for all these things. We don't have the money to go and do the prove-in test. Like that's millions of dollars to go to proving grounds and test all those things. But the level of rigor is there. The threads on the every bolt has been picked strategically. Nothing exists because it's should work. It exists because analytically at least shows that it's good to go. Um, Nothing's been made where it's like you look at it. It's more than just a packaging exercise. It's not just it bolts together, it fits, looks like it's strong enough, it's good. And I'm not saying that that's because that's what got us here. That type of thinking and that type of thought process got us here. But as a father and a husband, Don, same way, I don't want to put our families in vehicles that we've modified heavily and not have at least some kind of thought process behind what goes into these vehicles structurally because we've modified them. I mean, we've got 1,000 pound battery pack now
Yeah.
sitting inside of this thing. So that's a big deal to me.
Yeah,
I
and I
really
think
appreciate that. And I got to admit that as I've gotten older, I've gotten much more aware of just how bad things can go. And I mean, that's just in daily life. I joke about I like make fun of myself. Like cutting onions has never been more high stakes. It's like, oh, all right, we're paying attention now. We got a knife on the board. But even just things like driving in traffic and building cars, and I love to race cars. It's like, okay, we got to be really safe about this. And your presentation at State of Charge really resonated with me because of that rigor that you had put in. And it makes me feel like this is the types of analyses and the types of builds that I would love to see more and more of. Can let's dive into a little bit more about some of the resources that you would like to share or things that people should keep in mind around how you take a build from like, yes, it physically looks like a build. It's, all the bolts are there to that next level of like, this will last. It's not going to vibrate apart.
this is a perfect lead into that because, like I was just gonna say that, from my one-off experience, I just tend to overbuild things, right? Just make it visually and obviously stout and heavy or strong in whatever aspect you want. So, and that's kind of like how I went about it because I didn't have access or the knowledge to do the analyticals that are required. And uh, when he comes in and he brings in a lot of the structural stresses and yeah, it does take longer. Like, come on, man, we're just building this. Let's just double up on the iron or whatever. And that's not the way to do it. And then he shows me that that works, or what doesn't work, and then you redesign and you go back, and that's the beauty of like using the computers, and that's what's again got me excited to like be involved in that, just because like I said, I would just overbuild it, make it to where it's just obviously bomb proof.
Yeah.
But there's some drawbacks to that, weight design and how repeatability, those kinds of things.
And cost.
And cost, yeah. If you're building one, that's fine. But if you want to make it something you can put out there and that's reliable and you don't have fear of it coming back, then you go through all the analytics like he does, all the structural sciencey stuff that I I am learning and enjoying and know about, but like I said, I'm probably more of an intuitive builder. So, but bringing the science in it really like makes you feel secure about what uh, is getting built, you know.
Yeah. And it results in a repeatable thing. The result is a design that's not just robust and manufacturable, but it's also documented. So we have a full set of drawing suites um, that we can just submit to customers, and they can or to our suppliers, and they can do that. They can make it for us. So I'll I have some stuff I can share my screen. Yeah, so this is our, oh, there's some pictures of the solar car race. I don't want to dwell on that too much longer, but there's some cool pictures of it. So yeah, this is our setup here. This is the Nissan Leaf motor, the adapter here in the middle, and the transmission here on the left. So the question is, when we start putting these things together, how do they all survive in what engineering terms we'll call relevant environments? So a relevant environment for us is driving on the street. You got to withstand potholes, curb hits, God forbid, car accidents, things like that.
Hitting fire
So,
stations.
yeah, slamming
Yeah,
into fire
which it did
stations.
not survive.
So we'll start with things, this is just like a CAD model. You can kind of see the adapter plate that we've developed. On the top is the version that doesn't run a clutch. On the bottom does run a clutch. They're very similar, but they've gone through the same structural analyses. So this slide right here does a good job of explaining, at least at a very high level, what's going on here. So if you can imagine that you've got can you see my cursor when I
Yeah.
move my, okay. So when you've got the motor here, there's you learn in engineering school how to do a shear force and bending moment diagram. So if any engineers are listening, you'll probably be familiar with this if you're a mechanical or a civil engineer. So you take something and you assume that it's a beam. And so in this case, you can see this black line. I'm assuming it's a beam. And then you take the center of gravity of each one of the components that's there, and you know approximately where that is, and you know approximately how much these things weigh, and you can put that center of gravity on the beam and then do math to say what are the reaction forces on each one of these things. So for example, this guy right here is the center of gravity approximately. This is not the scale, by the way. This is just what I threw together for state of charge. But this is meant to be the center of gravity for the transmission. This is the center of gravity for the adapter plate. This is the center of gravity for the leaf motor and inverter. And you can plug that into this tool right here, and it'll actually, you can assign in this tool where all these things are. So you can have a table and you fill out the table, and I won't go into great detail. I don't want this to turn into a tutorial, but if anybody has questions about this, I can certainly help walk you through this. So you can get a rough estimate of where the point forces are. You'll notice I'm on this point force thing here. You enter in what those are, where their locations are. You hit calculate, and it'll basically give you it'll tell you what all the reaction forces are in this. So what that website gives you is this shear force, that's this, and bending moment diagram. So you can take the shear force and put that into this calculator. So you'll notice this is like a bolted joint. This is like a circular bolted joint. So then this calculator, and these are all free. These links are all for free. So you can assign what your bolt pattern looks like. So in our case, this bolt pattern is what will match the adapter plate bolt pattern. So I would go in here and I would put in XY coordinates for each bolt of our adapter plate. I now know what all the resultant forces are at those locations, and I can put them into this calculator, and it'll tell me what the stresses are in the bolts. So that will help you size, are my bolts big enough? Because you're basically assigning a bolt. You're telling it, in this case, it's a 7/16 bolt. You can change it to whatever you need it to be. So now you can say, are my bolts, at least at this level, strong enough. If you want to go one level further, let's see. Okay. So the first two are a little more high level. I'll admit that. But this one here, you can go through, you can say, what type of joint do I have? A nut with a bolt, and it changes. You have a nut and a bolt, or do I just have a tap joint? It goes here. You can estimate what these shear loads are, and you can put those in, or you can put those here, and what your tensile loads are, you can put those here. You can make assumptions on this based off of like maybe the weight of the things that you're bolting together. Then you can take the motor and the whole that whole motor and transmission assembly, add it all up, divide it by 3, and you can use those numbers in here for your tensile. You can take those numbers, divide those by however many bolts you have, put those in here. And it is a little more, if you want to do it like perfect, it's a little more complicated than that. But this definitely will give you, a rough order of magnitude. Are you in the ballpark of being good to go or not? You can pick different materials. So the free version just gives you these materials. They're both steels. This material 2 is a higher strength steel, like maybe a grade 8. This material 1 is like a grade 5 bolt. You can pick between inch and metric. So you can pick your different fastener sizes here. I would just leave this preload at 67%. It just means that you load up to 67% of the bolt's tensile strength, which is what you want to do. And then you come down here, you hit calculate, and it'll give you, so let's make up something. Let's say, actually, this is a joint that I was looking at earlier. I think this is actually a M12. So if I have an M12 and I'm putting these tensile and shear loads in, I hit calculate, it'll come over here and it'll tell me the separation. So it gives you separation, bolt yield, and thread shear, or bolt thread shear, and then material thread shear. So what this means is, will the two plates separate? That's this first column. Will they separate? Once a joint separates, it's game over. It's going to break. So this means that you have a factor of safety of 9.3 for nominally, and it's green, so you're good to go. Anything above 1 is positive factor of safety, and you're okay. This bolt yield means that the bolt is going to bend. And we're above 1, so we're okay. The threads on the bolt, will the threads shear, meaning they'll like strip out of the bolt? We're above 1, we're at 2.3. However, because I picked the weaker material that is in the tapped hole, so we're threading a bolt into a tapped hole, I picked the weaker material, so now we're below that. We're at below 1. So there's a risk that we're going to rip the bolt out of the material that we threaded it into. So you might want to consider going either to the next size bigger hole or bigger fastener, or adding more fastener so you can reduce those 900-pound loads that we saw originally up here. 990. This is a lot of force, right? It's almost 1,000 pounds going in tension and shear. So it's a pretty robust joint. So we have to make it a little bit more robust if we want to maintain this size of bolt. So this is just one example of something that this is free. You can go onto this website here, MechaniCalc, and there's a whole bunch of different calculators on here, and you can just make some estimates, some smart estimates about where your system might be. If you have questions about this, whoever's watching this, you can email me, get a hold of me, and I'll help walk you through this. This has nothing to do with me trying to know more than others. There's a lot of people that know this stuff, but if you want to know more and you want to be sure about your builds and understand what you're doing, I'm here. I will help you. This is very meaningful to me, and I said this is state of charge. If all it's going to take is for one of our conversions to fall apart and hurt somebody, it'll be a major black eye for the EV conversion scene, and I want to do the best I can to help mitigate that. And this is one of my contributions to doing that, in addition to just providing the EV conversion space with parts that we design and prove in, that have been through all of this. One last thing I want to show you too. So this is a structural analysis program called ANSYS Workbench. And so once I go through the motions of proving in all the bolted joints, You can come in here and you can assign all these bolted joints to each one of these things. This is our motor mount, one of our motor mounts. So you can subject it to this one seeing 30 G's of crash load. And you can see all these red spots. Those are areas of high stress. This type of software, um, I pay for this type of software. However, you can get free versions like Fusion 360. If you have a student version or if you have a version that's for startups, you can get access to this type of analysis tools. It's a little more advanced. However, it gives you an idea of where your weak points are, and you can even animate it so you can see it's kind of moving around.
Where it'll bend.
And you can see this force is pulling the motor mount down, so it's secured here and over here.
Wow.
And then it's pulling down so you can make predictions about where the high stresses are. And then it'll also give you your bolted joint loads if you set the model up right. And you can take those bolted joint loads and put it right into that tool I just showed you that's free. This is definitely advanced engineering stuff right here. These are things that I do at work. And if you set it up wrong, it could give you bad results. However, if your model's very simple and you watch a few YouTube videos like we all do, I think you could have some level of confidence that you can run an analysis, a simple analysis to try to get something going on your end to at least give you an idea. Of course, the other option is just overbuild it. If you're in, and I'm not trying to be facetious. I did that plenty of times.
Yeah.
If you're unsure, just overbuild it and put
When in
bigger
doubt.
bolts and more bolts.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to optimize and you're trying to, make it affordable but perform and survive, this is the difference between engineering and fabrication. My son Diego really wants to be an engineer and he loves to learn about fabrication. You can overbuild things and you can fabricate things to be as big and as strong as you want, and that's always the way to go if you're not 100% sure or you don't have the experience. There are plenty of people that have way more experience than I do building chassis and cars. Don's a good example of this. Like, I'm not trying to say that you have to do it this way. I'm saying that if you want to optimize it or if you want to understand how things are working and you want to know how things are kind of performing in relevant environments, these are ways you can do it. So you can certainly just overbuild it, and that's the way to go if you're not totally sure. This is the way I do it, and I just wanted to share that with all of you. And if you have questions about it, I'm more than happy to talk to you about it, or even provide levels of consultation just for free. I mean, if you just want me to look at what you're doing and you have questions, I'll do that.
I really appreciate that about you guys. Your willingness to share and help us all build better cars. To put a fine point on Evolution Motorsports as we're kind of wrapping up here, because you guys got a lot going on. So help me see what I missed. You guys are building these two cars right now for yourselves, and they're kind of your test mules. So, and you have a couple other builds in the background that we'll be starting to see making their way out into daylight in the future. You have the kit, the Leaf Miata MEB battery kit that's going to be on the market end of this year, beginning of next year. Are you guys, if someone is like, hey, I really want to get a build done to the level of quality that you guys are doing, but I don't have time to do it, is that something you guys do? Or is it more like someone like me, hey, I really want to do this build, but and I can spin wrenches enthusiastically even, but I don't know how to do that, like kind of critical modeling that you were talking about, or even where do I overbuild? Like, I overbuilt this cup holder. Is that good? No, it needs to be something more critical. Do you guys provide that sort of consultation to help someone like me on kind of my dream build?
The business model is this. We supply mechanical solutions, high quality engineered mechanical solutions for builders and shops that are converting to EV. That's our first and foremost business plan. We are providing the market with mechanical solutions to make their builds more efficient, more robust, and streamline minimize complexity. That's our first and foremost goal. But you can think of it as a tiered type solution. So we start there at the grassroots level with just piece parts. From there, we'll move up to the next level where those piece parts will feed an ecosystem that is actually an entire conversion kit. For example, the Ranchero will offer something like that for the Ranchero because there's multiple vehicles that share the same
vehicle
platform.
specific.
Mm.
Yeah, the Ranchero in particular, Mustang, early Falcon, they're all the same. And you know, Mustang's a popular conversion, but
Very.
like our motor mounts would work on that. And so if it's vehicles specific to what we're building, there's going to be products available directly for that. But then there's also a level of
Right.
universality to it too.
So we would have piece parts that people can buy and they can use them wherever they want. And we will help them if they want feedback on how to implement them, we can do that. The next level is whole kits for specific vehicles, the Falcon being one, the Toyota pickups being one. We'll also have the Cutlass, the A-body Cutlass, or the A-bodies in general, right? 68 to 72, Cutlass, Chevelle, Skylark, GTO. We'll have
Camino.
El Camino too. We'll have all what we develop next year will fit all those. There'll be entire solutions for those platforms, up to and including the next level, which is an entire chassis that's specific to those vehicles.
Cool.
So the A bodies, and then the next one is the G bodies. That's the 80s Cutlass, Monte Carlo, the Buick Grand National, El Camino. We'll have that same ecosystem for those. So all the parts that exist for those higher level kits, we will sell individually. We'll also sell the kits themselves. We will provide consultation. We are in the middle of partnering with other shops that are looking to get involved with racing, land speed racing, track racing. So we provide engineering consultation and research and development and developing of their products. If they need help doing that, we will provide support with that. And then at the top of that peak is what you mentioned, which is if we have somebody that's interested in some of the vehicles that we specialize in, we will discuss. Depending on what that entails, we may take that on, but that'll be more of a pick and choose kind of application. We want to focus primarily on parts and what we can do for the industry to help others with their builds. But we won't say no to the right customer and to the right build for sure.
Sure. But it has to fit with what you guys are building. And I love that.
It has to fit. Yeah, we're not gonna convert, somebody's random, like, hey, it's my first car. I really have a 82, Toyota Corolla. I'd love for that to be. We're not gonna do that one. Not that I don't have anything
My
against
dreams are
Toyota
shattered.
Corollas, but yeah,
It's just that there's a finite number of hours,
Yeah,
I
it's
know
so
that
true.
in the past I could get 25 hours out of a 24-hour day, but it doesn't happen like that anymore.
well, and
There's
we're
an
trying to
engineering
build these
problem.
parts to a high level of
Yeah.
quality. We're not just packaging things together. And in order to get to that level, you have to spend some time and get really good at the vehicles you pick. So and over time, much like Roadster Shop or any of those groups, they'll start to expand their offerings to the market. We'll do the same. So we started with those that I mentioned, and we'll expand from there. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Well, we covered a whole lot of ground today. And so thank you guys so much. I learned a ton and I really appreciate sitting down and chatting with you guys. Um, all of your information and links are going to be in the show notes down in the video here. So people reach out to Rocky and Dawn with any questions that you might have. And beyond that, I'm super stoked to stay tuned on everything that you guys are doing. I really love it. So thank you both for talking to me today.
Say thanks for having us. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of fun. And
Super fun.
it's been great talking with you.